Hello guys and welcome to TFT Worlds, set 10, day 2, game number 1. Enjoy.
Apparently got the dispatch meant for Scapeas and has immediately found the Heartsteel Cassante.
One of the strongest openings you could ask for. This can go really easily into 2 rapid fire and round out with Aphelios. Some players in the past would actually pre-level here to find that 2 cost and start off with Heartsteel 3.
Not just that, Jinx is a really great item holder. I think Jinx as a unit is looked down upon. Oh, she's a punk unit. This is for bad players who can only play punk reroll in stage 2, but she's a very good item carrier. Obviously attack speed is the best, but even just 80 items like IE are going to be okay in terms of killing units with Heartsteel. Losing rounds, yes, but making sure you're losing by only 1 unit.
Yeah, we certainly talked about that before. The HP preservation will be important as the silver augments come in. We were talking about this on the desk before. I'm a big fan of the different approaches this can bring to the game. How do you guys feel about the silver openings?
We have 3 big augments that you always take in silver, and those are 1, 2, 3, Vampirism, and Stationary Support. Those are the ones that players are always looking for, and our most picked was Vampirism in day 1.
2 interesting options. One for reroll. Scapeas has Caretaker's Ally available. If he hits the right reroll, that can really work out, but I think it's not Scapeas' game. He does go for it though. We saw another EMEA player, Jeduzor, yesterday hit Gragas, and it did not go well. He went down the disco line and went 8th. Let's hope Scapeas hits one of the good ones.
I mean, it certainly does seem like it plays into his style of being more of a wild card there. It looks like it's Switch.
Oh, no. Why did I say anything at all?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if anyone's going to find a way to make it work, it's definitely going to be him. But from the other Silk ones you see coming on the right-hand side, any of the others leap at you as well as that Caretaker's Ally?
I think the big one has to be the Swirls of War for Ice, a player that showcased his strength in building strong boards at any point in the game, any stage of TFT. If you pick this augment with a strong stage 2 board and you can win streak stage 2 especially, it can really snowball out of control. There are few silver augments that scale as much as Swirls of War in the late game especially.
Silver Spoils of War is definitely the best tier to get this augment relative to the combat augments. And what we see from CN is that a lot of 2-cost rerolls actually like taking this. You can play a relatively calm stage 2, but then spike hard on stage 3, and you're usually the strongest of the comps on stage 3.
I'll be really interested to see how that works out long term. Just looking at a few of the other ones in there. Salvi, with the help is on the way, has of course a long-term game plan. One of those players, as we mentioned, coming in today, who doesn't really have the chance outside of an absolute miracle run of making the top 8, but he's still motivated to improve his position and walk away with as much prize money as possible.
Is it time, Clement? The forbidden.
Oh no!
4 forbidden.
Are we gonna manifest it again?
Corky reroll. Salvi has nothing to lose. It's time to go in.
He still is not mathematically eliminated, so I'm not sure I would go for it. And I do want to talk about like the benchmarks right here, because we've seen players come back from 23 points on day 1 and make it to the final lobby on day 3 in Tech Summers.
No, absolutely. I mean, the one that comes to mind most for me, of course, is Rainplosion, who had that incredible comeback run after having a very rough start to the opening of groups day 1. But for Salvi, for El Mumu, it really is about just pushing a little bit further. You can see, look at Salvi's face. I mean, does he look? He certainly looks like a player who's still got absolute focus on his game, even if he knows day 1 didn't go the way he wanted.
And it's, as Clement said, possible to make the top 8 still. You'd need around 7.3 points per game to make it, so that's a lot of firsts and quite a few seconds as well, really only those 2 positions. But all in all, there's a massive prize pool for this event. Every single placement, even from 17th to 16th, is relevant in terms of trying to go home with as much of that prize pool as possible. So there are stakes for every single player in every lobby.
I mean, that's so important, of course. With the World Championship representing the apex of competitive TFT, we want our players to have those ways to commit the time in and, to make the TFT competition as big of a part of their lives as possible. But we've got ourselves a few more developments here. Eggy, we haven't seen too much, has found 4 super fan from the early going to get that early power on the board.
And we did see that early Shojin slam coming out from him, so that usually signals a Seraphine reroll. We have seen in CN that some players will actually move away from the Shojins and go for adaptive helm as well, but usually it will be that Seraphine or Senna line.
And Eggy played 2 games with Seraphine yesterday with great results. He is around that top 10 mark right now in the standings, so definitely a player that we could see playing reroll. He played 6 games of reroll yesterday. I think he's definitely in his comfort zone when going down these lines.
Well, we've mentioned the 2-cost rerolls a few times already. I kind of wanted to get a read for you guys, as we do have a spatula on our first one, which Ice and Yash both have
Spatula
first grab
and a Riven with a glove. Anyone trying to go down the Riven reroll route, as well as an Aphelios for someone that is maybe still missing Heartsteel in this stage 2.
It's going to be left up for an enormously long time. And it's going to be Bintium who ends up walking away with it. Taking a look at it on the bottom, we can see Heartsteel is in place for the time being. I might be able to push him over and get that active or push to the 5 sooner.
You can tell that there's a lot of rerolls in this lobby because Urgot with a BF sword was actually picked up almost second to last.
And looking at Ice, despite picking up Spoils of War, is currently 7th in the HP standing, so does not have the strongest board for Stage 2. But as we mentioned, if you can manage to win streak with Spoils of War the entire game, fantastic. Even if you don't, though, this item, or this augment rather, does something in Stage 4 and 5. It still scales into those stages and gets you a lot of resources.
Yeah, certainly would allow a little bit more aggression. Certainly from the Ribbon, we've got the Infinity Edge potentially ready to slam. I don't think at this point Ice wants to quite turn that corner. Go up against Salvi with the help is on the way. Has built a strong board without having use of the early augment.
Yep, and Salvi has basically the perfect opening here. He has the 4 Mosher combo in the front line with good anti-heal in the back line. Nothing much you could ask for when you're going for something like that Heartsteel line. On the other hand, for Ice, I'm getting a little bit worried because this is very much a 1st or 8th playstyle. It worked for Eggy, but on the other hand, we also saw, I think for Miguel, it handed him an 8th place.
That being said, for Ice, he is looking like he's playing Heartsteel. He has those item slams that are going down that line. And he's a player we saw yesterday is maybe the best Heartsteel player up until now in the tournament. So if there's one person to trust playing a riskier playstyle, it is the CN player.
Do want to take a note as we briefly saw Skipper say he has managed to find his long-forgotten home there in Heartsteel, along with the Twitch. It's not exactly the most obvious combination of things, but we'll see what ends up coming out long-term.
And I do want to say this is a massive low roll for Skipeas. He started the game with 2 Sennas. He really wanted the Senna from his caretakers, but Twitch is really one of the worst options because alone without the Punk, it takes so long to get your cast out, and he's been nerfed heavily before.
We did see that exact opener from Dish Soap in the NA Regionals, which he actually managed to top 4 with using that Vex carry with the Rabadons as a way to do so. It's possible, Clement, that Skipeas just uses the Twitch for econ and just sells them off later on. It's a little injection of 2 gold every time you level. It's not ideal, obviously, but if we're talking about someone that's able to adapt and go to those plan Bs, that is, of course, Skipeas.
Well, I do want to bring the conversation to Salvi, who we're seeing on screen right now. The Mosher certainly has been getting some decent stats here at the 3-cost reroll kind of place.
Win streak! Win streak!
Yeah. Well, Miguel gets it. In terms of the overall feel, where do you guys feel like Mosher lies, between the 2-cost rerolls and the late game boards?
I think it's very strong at top 4ing. We saw it in the stats just across ladder, across regionals coming into this tournament. I think the sample size in this tournament is not really reflective of its strength. We saw, even on broadcast, a few low roll games with Dish Soap where he had 4 Urgots at the end of stage 4, which is definitely not where you want to be, especially on a relatively uncontested line when Urgot is not being held by country rerollers, which there are not many of. So we'll see if players have, I think, more chances with it today.
And we just saw Miguel, actually with a very similar line with Salvi, win out. He's going to be our only 100 HP player. And I have to feel a little bit bad for Salvi because this happened yesterday as well. Super strong early game, but if you get that 1 loss in stage 2, with the streaks extended now, it's so hard to build up econ.
Well, speaking of streaks, we do not have many left in the lobby at all. Only Ice left on the full loss streak, and as you mentioned, Miguel up at the top with a 5-win streak. Given what we've seen so far, we're in a portal where we do not have a big impact on the overall game. A golden finale. How does this change the game that we've only got a couple of streakers going to stage 3?
I think what changes the game, Peter, is going to be a Zed on 3-1 when you're angling Heartsteel already.
That's illegal.
Ice just doing Ice things, Ice Ice Baby maybe should be the name for the rest of the tournament, considering how cool, calm, and collected he seems in terms of executing on a very risky playstyle, which is Heartsteel.
I have to admit, I have never heard that song in China.
Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time.
It's time.
Let us know in the chat if we change things across. But Ice, we mentioned, the turning point might be getting closer and closer. The Nah certainly doing a good amount of heavy lifting. Up against Skipeas here. We have got, as you mentioned, David, bringing the Punk into the mix as well to try and bring Skipeas' balls close together. Hasn't actually lost a ton of HP despite an unusual start.
He definitely has the tempo from the Twitch too, and what I want to mention is he finally got his Heartsteel online. The what about me complaining works in interview and at the top of the day, and that's why TFT players love doing it.
You don't get it if you don't ask.
Exactly.
I wonder if we're going to see a level to 6 and a Punk roll from Ice to try and find his own Heartsteel leading to the rest of stage 3. I think that could be an angle if you want to start getting those resources going in terms of the heart stacks.
All right, from silver to gold, we have got some directed ones. As David, as you just spotted there, submits the pit is on the cards here. Just take a quick look around. Last stand, also a potential option for Salvi down at the bottom. But we're seeing a relatively large amount of the more generic organs being picked up rather than the directional ones.
Yeah, I would really have wanted to see that blank state from Ice, but he rolls it away immediately.
Awkward options. Magic Wand, Little Buddies, Heroic Grab Bag. If he's trying to play Heartsteel, none are really ideal for this comp. Might have to pivot his strategy altogether, but he's already slammed items like IE, so I wonder where he goes with this.
Heroic Grab Bag, okay. I thought he was going to be going on a Riven angle because he did hit hold a Riven early on, but might be a little bit late to go back to that one. You can still play RE Warriors on this.
All right, across the rest of the field. Yeah, you mentioned the grab bag in place. Nice defenses. More or less what we'd expect going in, so we should keep things nice and stable. Eggy, though, has managed to find his way to a barred headliner, fully itemized, and dishing out a good amount of damage.
Everyone, caution, relax. He is not going to be playing Jazz reroll. This is just item holder for now, and you'll play one of the meta 2-cost rerolls instead. We only saw 2 Jazz rerolls yesterday. One of those players was Miguel, who's in this lobby. He went 7th with it, so not the best result.
And this is a really smart way to play tempo. A lot of the 2-cost rerolls share the same AP items. Specifically, we have seen a lot of Kales hold Seraphine items, and a lot of Senna's just kind of like, you can hold the bar items as well because they both have those mana generation from superfans.
No, absolutely. Checking in on Yush from O's, currently our lowest HP player in the lobby. Has slammed a lot of these early items and has been bringing the Heartsteel online for a while. Eggy in a roughly similar position, but a good amount of more HP. I mean, based on what we've got here, you mentioned we've got the flexibility to change things around. If you're in Eggy's position, one of our players who's got a good amount of points in the lobby, which one of these rerolls would you be most happy to see him on?
It's really about it's not contested. You have to be scouting. Right now, maybe it might be a bit too early. There are players who haven't decided yet, but especially at the end of stage 3, you have really clear indication in terms of what units are being held, especially on the bench, of what players are still angling or are open towards, and then trying to go down the uncontested line. If you're contesting something like a Kale, a Seraphine, you're going to have a really hard time hitting if someone else is going for that exact line.
It does look like we're shaping up for maybe a 4 Heartsteel lobby right here. A lot of players are getting their cash outs. So in terms of the 2-cost rerolls, it looks relatively open so far. I would definitely prefer Eggy onto the Seraphine line since his items are absolutely perfect for it. He's got the Shojin and the Nashers ready, and we saw a player like Yush do very well with it, the best Seraphine player in this lobby.
Yeah, of course, ourselves. Caitlyn and Ari hanging around if our players do want to try and find their direction a little bit more fiercely. Ice taking a look there before locking down. To touch back on something from much early on, Bintium, who did pick up that spatula, has turned that into a Heartsteel emblem. So we do know, as you mentioned, Clement, Heartsteel is very much on the menu multiple times.
I'm not surprised he's a little bit far behind in the standings. Needs to have some big games to come back for his deficit yesterday. And this might mean using his skill as a player to really try and min-max his Heartsteel line, get as many resources as possible, and plays for those first or seconds, even starting on this Game 7.
Oh, this is such an interesting combination. Return on investment and caretakers in the same. What is happening in the EMEA?
What is happening in Scapace's head?
Okay,
There's a more specific question that you have to ask there, Clement.
I will open up the field here because I remember from previous championships, there were players who went their own way and ended up influencing future play to come. I think it was mentioned in the opening desk, Scapace has been an inimitable player in a lot of ways, but hey, if it works, it works.
Could he possibly be sticking to the Twitch line, playing Executioner?
I think he is.
Has a double stone play already in the Garen, and indicates that Amumu will be the solo front in this game. The extra spot for Executioners especially is really great because you want to be rolling on 6 and 7, but you want extra trade spots to go for that vertical on the Executioner line. So I think it makes a lot of sense. I think he is, in this case, not giving up on what he's given with Caretaker's ally. If it's an ally, he wants to trust it, so we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, we have seen a lot of people, when they hit this Twitch with caretakers, they can actually just sell the Twitch and move the items over to someone like Samira. Generally speaking, if you don't have Punk in, it's not really worth it to run the Twitch 3.
Well, at least Scapace has been able to run out the lost streak for this round at least, so he'll be brewing things close. As you noted, we have got the bench units giving us indication as we've got our 6th Twitch coming in.
Rolling on 6.
The question here is if he accidentally finds a headliner, or does he just swap immediately? I think that's always the interesting thing, and like players go for tempo, or do they want to go for more cap?
And you get some lost value from the extra you still get for the next few level ups.
All right. No, I don't hate it at all. Scapace, of course, as you mentioned, we'll have the return on investment Tactician's Crown coming in just a second. We're seeing our players starting to level up as we come to the end of stage number 3. Miguel up at the top with Bintium as well. Salvi was going to bring up before. But Yash, down towards the bottom, has managed to put together a pretty decent-looking board.
Clear indicator of playing. Heartsteel has already the IE and the Red Buff Slam, the Gunblade for the Z especially. For now, just the Aphelios headliner with a tier, hoping for the second tier, obviously for the blue buff coming in this next PV round.
Yep, Yush is on 41 HP, so there is pretty much no chance for a raise the stakes right here, but he did get that 5 Heartsteel in early on. I will say for Heartsteel, you really want to clear the 200 mark if you want to go for raise the stakes, because you can dodge those tomes. Those tomes absolutely kill your stage 4.
Yeah, it's a big risk to take at this kind of stage of the competition. As Skipper's does ride out his loss streak, Eki the only one to take the win streak out of the stage as well. As we move into stage 4, what are you guys feeling about the overall lobby from what we've seen so far?
Uh-oh.
Wait a second, Bintem.
He didn't find 5 Heartsteel though, kind of sad considering he had the emblem as well. You'd expect him to find the 4 Heartsteel naturally and then the 5th Heartsteel with, okay, he has it now, yeah, never mind. So he's good to go with this massive raise the stakes.
All right, so based on what we've seen so far, what are you guys expecting the rest of this game 1 of day 2 to look like?
From just right now, I'm expecting Riven reroll. I called it. He's going back. He kind of low rolled a little bit early, and I feel like he held Rivens, but then sold them a little bit. And now he's just looking to finish out because he's very close on finishing out all of his Rivens right now.
Let's see that APM. You told us all about it. He banned Think Fast across the world for how fast he can move on the board. And this roll down's looking good. Only missing 1 Riven with the 2 duplicators on the bench. Can he find it in time? Has a Yorick online, has a Kane online as well.
All right, I do not hate it at all. We've already got a decent amount of the 8-bit stacks brewing from a little bit earlier on. Up against Skipers, of course, is very happy to keep that loss streak going. Let's ice back into the conversation a little bit more.
Yep, and we did see this very first release style, but I do want to remind everyone that Riven reroll was the top 3-cost comp that we saw yesterday from our overall stats, so it is working for players.
4-2 Augment's going to come up now, and this means that anyone that has to have these massive Heartsteel roll down to level 8 needs to pick quickly and start rolling down, trying to find these units as fast as possible before others can test you on things like Poppy, things like Zed, or the Ezreal.
We did have Golden Finale, so for augments, this is the best for tailored combat augments. It only happens in gold. It's a lot better for reroll comps in most situations compared to Heartsteel.
You mentioned the roll down going through. Keep my eyes over on Bintem on the far side there. As we've got a lot of stuff being hit across the board. Miguel putting together the board as well in the bottom left-hand side.
I would say for all of the high rolls right here, remember your roots is probably the best for Eggy because Seraphine reroll, KDA plus Spellweaver basically covers your entire board. That's what the one I personally really like out of these 8.
And I love the thematic game plan for Skippace as well. He goes from an ally to a best friend, really getting the friendship online for this Executioner comp. And is trying to, as we mentioned, fit in these Amumu's, the 2 Stoneblades in the front. The Vex too, yes, but only 3 copies of Vex for now on this board.
Yeah, it's been taking the slightly longer road for the lobby. It's spent aggressively to get this board online, and now is turning the corner into the wins. Has the Tactician's Crown cashed out for the return on investment, and will hand out the extra loss to Bintem, of course. That raise the stakes box is getting more and more valuable.
This is great matchmaking from him because he's sitting on 40 HP. If he loses any of these early rounds, he's going to have to donkey roll on 3-5, 3-6. So a big sigh of reprieve. And look at Ice. We didn't even get to see the roll down, but he was only 1 off.
Going to have to hope for a tier on this next carousel to have a little bit of Omnivamp onto that Riven so she can do her best in terms of dealing damage, but also surviving a lot of those hits as a melee reroll unit.
Checking in for a second on Mumu with the center board being brought together with a long-term return on investment being picked up as a final augment. But the Seraphine comp for Eggy does seem to be online. Pretty much as promised. We'll see how well it does against the more clumped boards like Bintem's right now.
I am a little bit worried for Eggy right here because there are 4 Seraphines on El Mumu's board and he has not found an Ahri. That is typically the most important point when you're going up against a 4 Heartsteel lobby.
And look at all our reroll players. Only a single one has already hit his 3-star. It's only Ice on that Riven. Everyone else is still waiting to find it. Even Skippace with the ally has not found the Twitch 3. We're still seeing, 2 Seraphines off, as you mentioned, for Eggy. So players have to really hit that next spike, especially once the Heartsteel boards fully come online.
And I have to say that this is rather a slow tempo lobby, even with that many even with that many reroll players over here. There is one big contested unit here, and it is going to be the Seraphine. Let's see if Eggy can snag it from the last selection.
Looks like you can see him being drawn towards it almost magnetically and will walk up and take it. Woo! Despite Eggy's on a massive win streak right now, I'm honestly surprised he's not getting more aggravated attention.
I think players have enough on their plate with things to worry about. Especially players like Binta, massive cash out, 90 gold to work with on level 8. Needs to try and find some stability here before maybe trying to go 9. Needs to find at least a headliner he can work with here.
And we checked the stats yesterday. The best headliner was actually the EDM Zac in terms of results. For the one that people picked the most, it was definitely down to the EDM Zac. And the worst performing one was actually the big shot Ezreal.
All right, well, we got pretty close with the Bruiser. Zac, certainly 4 Bruiser online with the Virtue of the Martyr as well for extra maximum HP healing. Well, I mean, Bintum can turn the corner here and start using this big cash out to start getting big wins.
Miguel as well on the Heartsteel, or on the Ezreal headliner rather. So we see already here 4 Ezreals out of the pool. We're going to imagine with the amount of Heartsteel players in this lobby, there are quite a few more out as well. So this stage 4 is so important for at least getting 1 copy of your core units.
This is really bad for the players that have already slammed the Ezreal items to see Miguel on this headliner. Usually if you're stuck on Ezreal 1, you're going to bleed out super fast in stage 4 and stage 5. And that's why we see a lot more warrior items being slammed early now.
Yeah, you got to keep that flexibility alive. We already mentioned the don't really contesting on the 2-cost reroll. Eggy, of course, 1 Seraphine away from happiness. At least he's got a good amount of HP left in the bank, though gold is a little bit more scarce.
Yeah, and looking here, we still have 2 big lose streaks here, down to 30 HP. So even though the rerollers started a little bit late, it does seem like at the end of stage 4, it's still putting enough pressure on those Heartsteel players.
Yeah, all the way down from 4th place down to currently 8th place. There's not a lot of room between those players' HP turtles. These coming rounds will be very important.
And I do want to point out that Ice has found his BIS. He was lacking lifesteal for his Riven, so now that's back. He's going to start climbing. Already has turned the corner from his lose streaking to wins.
It has a healing orb as well, so really making sure this Riven stays alive and dishes out damage throughout all of these fights. No special in the stage 4 carousel, unfortunately, so no real chance right now for that 8-bit emblem. Could find it in stage 5 if he stays alive that long, because right now, 8th in the HP standings. A few losses and he might be out.
And this is the big problem without running Ahri on your board. When you're going up against a drain tank like True Damage Akali, you just can't finish the target off. He out-damaged, he out-tanked, but in the end, True Damage Akali was able to carry the board for, I believe, Yush.
At least Yush makes it through here and stays alive. We check back in with Scapeus, who's been brewing for a while. The board is starting to look a little bit more cohesive here. See the moment of contemplation heading into stage 5 with a 4-round win streak.
He better pray for some big items right here. If this comp doesn't get enough items, it usually falls off a cliff. And he has 2 items stuck on the Twitch.
We'll keep an eye out longer term. Miguelo and El Mumu are the ones most up front of mind. They've at least got another life in both of them. But we can see, this is pretty much going to be it for Miguel. This board needs to make it happen.
Needs to find these frontline upgrades, especially the Poppy. 2 items, only a 1-star, the Zac as well, which is why we're seeing him roll so heavily. On level 8 still, finds a Lucian, sure, but that frontline was going to melt very quickly once everyone starts hitting their 3-stars.
Oh, we saw 2 3-stars appear on the board back-to-back, the Seraphine and the Senna now online. And I have to say, I feel bad for Miguel. He started stage 4 off strong, hitting the Heartsteel Ezreal, but without the front line, that still isn't enough.
We'll see how slam the BT on Akali here as well. The fight's going to start up now.
Yeah, we'll get to see the unleashed power of the 3-star Senna in place. Certainly we've got ourselves a good amount of spread to try and keep the damage from getting too harsh too quickly. Senna staying alive thanks to the healing orbs, providing a little bit more time to get the hits in and get the big win.
Yeah, we just saw the front line right there just melt completely on Bintum's side. You really need that Alawi 2 to kind of deny a couple of shots from the Senna, and that's going to be the key for those Heartsteel players to survive the Seraphine and the Senna.
We're in stage 5 now. We're starting to see a big gap in HP. Massive upgrades for Ice, who needed it. He was near the bottom, but look at this. The top 3 players above 40, and then a 20 HP jump onto a Mumu, who is now finally stabilized off of that Senna 3.
And Ice at least has got the Thieves' Gloves to bring the Caitlyn online with a decent amount of 8-bit stacks. Make it just a little bit more powerful. Rapid fire in place as well. It's still, though, going to be so much on whether or not the Riven can get in and do the damage.
This is one of the reasons I don't really like the full open into Riven strategy. It's because you don't have time to stack up your 8-bit stacks. He's sitting around 80,000 right now, but if positioning goes badly, he could instantly lose the game. On 9 HP only, he drains Take It Back. He's actually healing up.
Yeah, actually going away from the Ezreal may have worked out pretty well because the Riven gets through the entire round without really taking significant damage and gets a big hit off. Bintum isn't quite dead, but he's getting pretty close on the left-hand side. Miguel is low as well.
Oh, and we do see Miguel going out here. I felt like Bintum did position correctly. He had the Zed and the Ezreal stacked onto the Riven, just like Panda was talking about with the tri-focus, but it didn't work out in the end.
That's going to be all other Heartsteel players in this lobby rejoicing. A lot of these units are back in the pool. If you're missing that last upgrade onto a Poppy, onto an Ezreal, onto a Zed, now's your time to have a desperation roll down for players like Bintum maybe, who now has 0 gold actually, to try and hit those upgrades and survive at least one more round.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, the HP is very, very close. Again, on this final day of groups with our top 8 tomorrow. Getting 1 point could be what tips you over the line, or otherwise, Bintum, nothing left in the tank. This is going to be it.
I love the Ezreal positioning here. It's actually the safest way to make sure Ezreal does not get targeted by melee units, starting him on that 3rd row.
Yep. Ezreal always jumps away furthest from his target, so if you put him on his 4th, sometimes he actually jumps forward.
Exactly.
So it's always better to put him on the 3rd in that specific position. Can it take him over the Scapeus board is the question. Scapeus actually hit 2 items in his PvE round.
Yeah, the backline's staying remarkably intact there, and looks like the executioners have come online in a big enough way. You see the Twitch is being used just as utility, as Scapeus gets the hit and makes our 2nd elimination, with Yush going out as well. It means we're down to our top 5.
Looking at the emblems, not too warping here. There isn't really a Pentakill Flex player that can make use of this emblem. Rapid Fire, Disco, especially not going to be too appealing. Look at the 5 cost, though. Maybe this Yorick with red buff. If you're missing anti-heal, that might be a great option. Ice is the one to pick it up. I want to take a moment and give Scapeus some commendations because he has pivoted a Caretaker's Ally Twitch game into a no Twin Terror, playing multiple executions on his board, into a 7-win streak in stage 4 and 5, into 1st place in the standings. Is there anything this man cannot do?
That was so good to watch because he actually had anti-synergy in those first 2 augments. You roll and you don't get your caretakers, but he found the copies anyway.
I can't draw my eyes away from the Twitch itemization there, the Gwyncy's Rage Blade and the Static Shift, but we have got players with more immediate concerns. Elmumu, the lowest HP along with Ice. One of them could leave in this round and have us our top 4.
Again, a couple of big things about this board is that he just missed on his 4 cost right here, but he isn't rolling. He actually has 30 gold in the bank.
The same positioning puzzle for both players. The clump in the front trying to have the AoE damage from the Vex and the Senna go into that front line, delete it as quickly as possible. Who will come out ahead? The Senna is chewing through the Amumu, but he survived for long enough. That should be enough for Scapeus to prolong his win streak. Senna is a beast, though, and I'm proven wrong. My goodness.
My gosh. That combo kill at the end there, that's going to be one that stays around for a while. I thought the second the Akali dropped out, that was going to be a done deal.
That was a 1v3 situation, but the healing orb does pull through and give him the win right there. On the other hand, we did see Salvi eliminate Ice because of that 2-star Zed. Love that itemization with the Deathblade.
Looking at the player narratives in this top 4, 2 players who need a big result to come back into it. Salvi still keeping the dream alive, needs a 1st or 2nd in this game. Eggy and Scapeus, some of the favorites coming into it, continuing those good results in Game 7.
And it's certainly good news for Amir in this top 4. Considering how overall things have been a little bit more shaky. We'll see how Salvi goes up against Elmumu here. See the rapid fire Ezreal on the back line, and we've got ourselves a good amount of damage actually landing directly onto the center.
Zed.
It almost gets the knockdown. He's still alive.
Look at this. Oh my god, the challenger AI on the Zed survives with a Hodge, past all the Senna damage, and still wins that fight. And on the left, Eggy taking down a notch as well. Scapeus continues his win streak.
Oh boy, I feel so bad here for the Senna board because he got the perfect focus. He had the Ahri in this right position and the Senna hit the Zed early on, but it wasn't enough. Didn't have the star quality.
Oh boy, so 2 EMEA players and 1 player from Southeast Asia in our top 3 here in game number 1 of day 2 of the Remix Rumble Global Championship. She said, David, such different stakes at play here. Honestly, Salvi, Scapeus in particular, going to be feeling great just to have made the top 3 and started the day well.
And Eggy, in his comfort zone, plays a third game of Seraphine reroll, finds Remember Your Roots, as you mentioned, one of the best augments for this comp, so really had that great, comfortable avenue into this top 3, and if he keeps it up, if he continue finding these great spots for the lines he's comfortable on, he could be in the top 8, no problem.
I really wanted to say Eggy wanted El Mumu to stay in the game because the Senna is the best chance for him to actually beat Skipeus. There's no way that this Seraphine board with the backline focus is that good against the Executioner.
That being said, Skipeus has best friends, forces a little bit more clumping with that backline carry, so it has to maybe min-max in terms of not playing for the optimal attack speed buffs off of the best friends.
And he does have true damage here, so goes through the gargoyles well.
Well, this time it will be up against Salvi. You know, keep a close eye on where that Zed ends up going because he's got some weaker units in front of him to try and punch through to the backline. Gets a little bit distracted, though, by the Akali, but gets back to work. At least the Echo in the middle holds, but the Zed will walk up to the Seraphine with the help of our friend Ezreal. Just deletes. And also the Ahri falls as well. A solid victory there. Eggy goes out, and Amir take the top 2 spots.
This is something we have to watch in all the fights and today afterwards is if that Zed gets to the backline without proccing the EON, he's just finishing the entire fight by himself.
And as I mentioned yesterday, EMEA got all their 8ths out of the way. Now the first and seconds will start rolling in. I had Salvi as one of my favorites to win the entire tournament. Maybe viewers were asking yesterday, you know, how did he do so poorly? This is the Salvi we saw all season long. This is the Salvi we saw at EMEA finals, dominating, capping out boards with Heartsteel and going first across those final days.
I just want to draw attention to that little moment we saw from Salvi there. The big breath in, the big breath out. He didn't know what day 2 was going to look like coming in. We did hear at level, he's got his friends there to support him. This game, I think, is the redemption for him, as we'll get into what could be the final fight.
Look at that frontline stun. Look at that clump for the Vex to feast on. Can she get the key kills on the Poppy and the Zed? The Zed is half health now. He's taken down. He is. The crowd ever comes through. Lucian's all by himself. The shots are good, but is it good enough in terms of damage?
Oh!
Looks like it's not going to be the case. One more Karthus cast. It's not even needed. Salvi's taken down a notch.
I really like what Skipeus did here. He was able to off-center his Amumu. A lot of players always keep their Amumu in the center, but this time around he forced it right in front of the Zed and kept him stuck there forever.
We know that is the speciality of Skipeus, the positioning, especially in these high-stakes situations, but he's going to have to make it happen at least one more time in a big way.
Reminder, these two players are playing in the Level Berlin hub. They're right next to each other as they're fighting for this first place. Hopefully no acoustic distractions between them as we load into this last fight.
A big thing here is Salvi going to make use of that Legion? So he does still want to keep his Zed in the front line. We have seen against solo frontliners, a lot of the times you want to put your Zed into the sides, and this time he might get a sneak across the Amumu.
All right, we'll see who's going to get the redemption or Skipeus move into a fantastic finish. The front line collapses. The Zed is still alive on the back, but the backliners for Salvi are gone. It's down to the Zed. Salvi takes the hit. Skipeus finishes the first game of day 2 in first place.
And yet again, doing it in Skipeus.